So, hello, good evening, and welcome to today being the last episode in season one of the Priscilla Nwikpo show. But welcome to all of you. Um, Thank you for your staying with me to this point. Well, my guest tonight, as I had mentioned on my Facebook page, tonight we're going to be looking at two different things. Tonight we're looking at your sexual health, focusing mainly on HIV, and also we're going to be speaking to I want to be governor of Edo State candidate. But my first guest tonight, he works with BHA for Equality in Health and Social Care. And they're doing a great deal of work. They're based in Manchester and they're doing a great deal of work on HIV. And tonight we're just going to discuss it because you would have thought that in 2020, when we talk about HIV, you would have thought, for one thing, you would have thought it was eradicated, or you would have thought would have made great progress, or we wouldn't need to still continue to discuss the issue at length or to create awareness because you would have thought all of us knew by now. But apparently, we don't all still know either what's going on, how to deal with it. We're not cautious enough to prevent. My guest tonight is going to help us to have better understanding and equally at the same time share some of the things that we need to do in order to continue to remain safe. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show tonight, Mr. Jeff Okri. Jeff, you're welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Priscilla? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing great.
I
Thank you
hope you
for
had
inviting me.
a day today.
Yeah, it's been good. The weather has not been bad today. Yeah, but
Okay.
I've not been out of my house actually. But through the
Oh,
window, I don't think it's bad though.
oh, you've been
Mm,
working from home
It's
a lot?
been yeah, it's been impressive. Yeah. I've been working. I've been home all day. I'm preparing for this event.
Really? Well, you do this all the time. You shouldn't be needing care as such.
Oh, we
So,
all get nervous all the time.
as I made mention there, you work with an organization called BHA, and therefore Equality in Health and Social Care. They're
Yeah,
based in Manchester, but they're also linked with an organization called Hive.
yeah.
Um, you know, tell me, give me a breakdown of how the two interlink, what they're about, and what they do, please.
Yeah, we work with I work for BHA for Equality. My name is Jeff Okiri. I'm the community engagement worker for BHA for Equality.
Right.
Um, the IVE project is a subsidiary or a subdivision of a patch partnership, which is a conglomerate of three charities
Okay.
working to ensure the end of HIV transmission by 2030. So it is the patch means passionate about sexual health. So it's this charities, the George House Trust is a charity in Manchester as well, and the
Mhm.
LGBT Foundation along with BHF for Equality coming together for to galvanize around this project called IVE. Yes. So IVE just simply means ending all new cases of HIV. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you for that. I mean, we're in 2020, so you would imagine that everybody should know by now. But, sometimes people still ask the question and still wonder, what is the difference between HIV and AIDS? Because we
Well,
hear about HIV, but very little about what AIDS is.
Mm. Well, HIV it's called human immunodeficiency virus, basically, and it's a virus that attacks the immune system. So what it does is that it just goes and attacks the immune system to bring the immune system down to make it, you know, just reduce its capacity to secure your body in
Okay,
in the event of somebody so in the event of of an infection getting to your body, actually, that's what the HIV does, and
right.
when it goes into your body, it just affects your body and then brings your immune system down. And when it brings your immune system down, your body loses its capacity to fight against the incursion of any kind of infection, such as cold, catarrh, you know,
Okay.
tuberculosis, and all that. So when it gets into your body, so when it brings that immunity down, it
Mm,
gets to a point where your body your body has that mechanism anyway, so you also fight any kind of incursion of anything. So it
Yeah.
fights HIV and fights HIV, but HIV becomes so dominant because what HIV does, it targets what they call the CD4 cells, and when it
Mm,
targets the CD4 cells, it then converts the CD4 cell into HIV. So it then begins to multiply in the body rapidly. So
wow.
as it begins to multiply in the body rapidly, your body loses its capacity to fight because it becomes so plenteous that
Mm,
you cannot fight HIV anymore. And when it
yeah.
gets to that point, when other infections come to your body does not have immunity to fight those infections anymore. So when it begins to continue to lose its immunity, and then there's more incursions of more, strangers in the form of diseases and all that, your body loses and begins to, lose potential and all that, and then it gets to a point where you become extremely sick, and that's the point you call it AIDS.
Okay, so AIDS is basically, a migration from the HIV virus, that, migrates to the point where you
Yeah,
become so unwell.
yeah.
Uh,
So that's why
and
it's called acquired immunodeficiency disease. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Thank you
yeah.
for that. I mean, again, I know that we take it for granted sometimes, at least for my generation. We
Mhm.
take it for granted because in my generation, we've been discussing this for 20 years or 20 over 20 years. But there are, others who, believe it or not, it may still be new to them. So,
Mm.
let's discuss the transmission routes. How will people, it's somewhat elementary, but how do people still pick up HIV in 2020?
Well, the number of routes, first of all, is through sex, which is the main means through which HIV can be
Mm,
acquired, and then we have breastfeeding as well. But I'm going to talk about that. The things have changed regarding breastfeeding, but that's a means through which you can acquire HIV. And there's the sharing of needles as well, which is
mhm.
another way through which HIV can be transmitted. So these are the three major means through which HIV can be transmitted. So if you're engaging in sexual practice, whether it's anal sex or vaginal sex, you can acquire HIV through that means.
Mm,
Now there are myths around acquisition of HIV that being peddled that, or if you use the same spoon, you can acquire HIV through that means. If you use, you know, this, clippers, you can acquire it. These are not really official means of acquiring HIV. The main means of acquiring HIV are these three processes because HIV needs a blood stream to actually go through your body. Yeah.
People have said that they've picked it up from the dentist chair. They've talked about,
From the
I mean,
dentist chair.
yeah, I've heard people, say that they've picked up HIV from the dentist chair. Is it the same thing as, as you're saying, it's not possible as per the clipper?
Well, you see, the HIV is a very delicate virus. It's very,
Mm,
very delicate, and it cannot last, outside the bloodstream
okay.
for too long. Very within seconds they just die because it's very, very tiny. It's hard to even to you to see it that much. So it's very delicate. It dies within seconds. So it
Mm,
cannot really. It thrives in the body. It thrives in the blood. It thrives everywhere. Anything that
mm,
has to do with the blood, it needs a domain, and the domain has to be where there's blood. So the conception that people or individuals catch HIV through any other means beyond the means I've listed are just fallacies. They're not true. Yeah,
okay. It's good to know that
yeah,
the way you can pick it up is it's not as common
yeah.
as times we're made to think. Now, I remember a few years ago, there was the whole discussion about, the
Hmm.
drugs that were available now. And
Yes,
for instance, there's the conversation that a woman can, give birth to a child.
yeah.
That child will not necessarily have HIV,
Hmm.
because of the drugs that the mother is taking that will
Yeah,
prevent it transmitting to the child.
yeah.
So Explain that to us, how that works. I really want to understand that, because you also made mention of breastfeeding just then, and then you said you would. So I want to really understand that. Where are we at with that? Is that still the case that there are drugs available that prevents the transmission from a mother to an unborn child?
Yeah, that's what we call undetectable viral load that is being enabled by the intake of medication.
Okay.
So when you take this medication, which is any kind of HIV medication that is prescribed to you by the doctor, it
Mm-hmm.
gets to your bloodstream and then fights against the virus and bring it to where it brings it to a place what we call the latency stage. In there, what we mean by that is that it hides away.
Mm-hmm.
So when it hides away, it lacks functionality. So when it gets to that point, because of the intake of medication and the combat that it has on the HIV,
Mm.
HIV cannot function with the presence of medication in your body. So they hide away, they lose their ability to come out, even when you have sex, when you do, and when you have, even when just your body loses that presence of HIV at that point, unless you stop your medication. So it's called undetectability. It's called undetectable viral load. And
Okay.
so when you get to that point, when the child, because first of all, when the mother is diagnosed to be HIV positive, the first thing they do is to put her on treatment. So when she's put on treatment, immediately, when you put her on treatment, she's put on treatment to achieve that undetectable viral load. So when she gets to that undetectable viral load, which can be, immediately she's diagnosed within 6 months, you can achieve undetectable viral load. So when, for example, if she's found to be HIV positive at the first trimester, she can be put on medication straight away. And then by the time she's giving birth, she's achieved undetectable viral load. Then she can give birth to that child without infection. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? Yeah, the same thing with breast milk, because the breast milk itself do not contain HIV itself.
Okay.
When a child is sucking the breast, sometimes it can bite the breast.
Mm-hmm.
It can only
Wow.
be in children,
Yeah.
and then the blood will come out and then transmit into the child's mouth and everything. So,
Mm-hmm.
you may not notice as a mom, but you literally like some of these things happen. So you say, child just beat me. But the truth is that blood can come out and then transmit to the child. So, because the mother has achieved undetectable viral load with the medication, that becomes also impossible as well.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but this is for people who are aware of their HIV status. For those who are not aware of their HIV status, they breastfeed their children and they can pass HIV
And they
across.
can pass it
Yeah,
on
yeah,
without realizing.
yeah.
Okay. So in that leads me to my next question. You're saying people who are not aware that they're HIV positive, or of their
Yeah.
status rather. How frequently should we get tested? I don't know about you, but for me, anytime I step into my doctors for a blood test, whether they like it or yes, I just ask for it, not because I've done anything, but just because I just like to be safe. So how frequently should people be tested, and how are we doing these testing?
Yeah, okay, cool. I just want to let you know that there are lots of tests, that clinics that carry that test. At the moment, because of COVID-19, that is not, because of the limited capacity, they're
Yeah.
not testing at the moment. But I want you to know that testing, are there. They're you can test online. You can get tests online.
Mm-hmm.
You can order for tests online from the BHA website. You can go to the bha.org.uk and get, you can order for free tests. You can go to freetesting.hiv and you can
Right.
order for free tests there.
Okay.
I think it's important that you do tests every 3 months if you're engaging in sexual practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I think anyway. But some people will say 6 months, but maybe every 4 months you can do that. But if you're very sure of your partner and you know that your partner is not engaging in any kind of extra relationship affairs, then you can wait until maybe once in a year or something like that. And
Okay.
yeah. But if you know you're engaging in multiple sex, you have multiple partners, you're engaging in lots of sex, and you're having partners that you're not sure of,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah,
They need to do it more frequently.
yeah, you need to do it more frequently. And we also advocate the use of condom as well if
Yeah.
you're engaging in such practice. Yeah.
Okay. Now, something just came to mind as you were speaking there, because at the top there, you spoke about the fact that the virus needs to be housed within the bloodstream.
Yeah.
in order for it to be able to have effect. But then sexually, it's not usually blood that's being transmitted. So how is it then possible to transfer it sexually when it's not necessarily
Yeah,
blood?
it's also contained in the fluid as well. I forgot to say that
Okay,
in the fluid of this of the vagina, also the semen. Yeah,
okay
yeah,
then. You know, so if it is to be eradicated in the next few years, what should so let's say for instance, what should the new generation be doing, the younger generation? I was speaking to you earlier about this, and I was
mm.
saying that naturally you would think for my generation, obviously we've been having this conversation a long time, but let's say the 20-year-olds at the moment, how are they doing with regards to this, and what should they be doing going
Yeah.
forward?
You, I just want to say that we're not bringing our work as individuals who are working in the community to get people to test. Our work is to, and I will tell you the reasons why. Our work is to bring all new transmission of HIV to an end by 2030. There
Yeah.
is no cure for HIV at the moment. The reason why we talking about bringing all new cases of HIV transmission is because of the 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 the, the fact that when you take medication, you get to a point where you become undetectable, and because when you get to that point, you do not transmit HIV to somebody else anymore. So what we want to do is to identify individuals within our communities that are HIV positive, yeah, and then put them on treatment. And when we put them on treatment, because they're going to be on treatment, they do not transmit HIV onto somebody else anymore. So if they do not transmit HIV onto anybody else, that means nobody else will get affected. So it's about
Okay.
encouraging people to really test. That's the stage we are at the moment. There's ongoing research about around cure, which is going to come out by the grace of God soon, but we don't know yet. Um, but for now, this is what we're advocating for people to go for test, and so they can get their viral loads down,
Okay.
and then they become non-transmittable. Regarding your question around young people, whether what they should do at this time, what they should
Yeah.
do at this time is that as long as you're engaging in sexual practice, it is important that you go for HIV tests on a regular basis.
Mm.
And the utilization of condom. Abstinence is also a preventive measure. Utilization of condom is also another measure that you can sorry guess another preventive measure. And
Mm.
then if you're and then we're going to talk about other things like prep and pep, which are also other preventive measures that we can
Okay.
utilize to prevent
So
acquisition of
I'll
HIV.
come to that in a minute. I'll come to the prep and so on in a moment. But what I want to ask is, still on the young people, the younger generation, we live in an age where everything is for them. They're more sexually explicit. They're more sexually free, as it were, and they discuss these things so much more openly. You would see it all the time on social media. So my question is there enough sexual education, for instance, within the community that you're working in, to be able to help for those who are not, are not yet aware, so that they can take it seriously and not be ones that don't become the new cases that you're trying to prevent, for instance.
Yeah, we know that working in the community, we come to realize that there's absence of that discussion in communities, maybe because of our background, especially those from the BIM community, coming from
Really?
Africa, where most people don't talk about sex, and sex is often a taboo discussion. Can you hear me? I don't know.
Yes, I can. I'm
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
taken aback by that. I would have thought that by now we will all be having these conversations because it's 2020.
Yes, it is. But when you go to those places, especially if you go to the church, the mosques, the community groups, when you talk about sex, people are just laughing. They're shy. They just shy away from discussing. But the surprising thing is that there's a big contrast when you go on social media. A lot of people are
Mm,
talking about sex all the time, and they're very explicit about even showing their posteriors,
hide
posteriors
behind
on.
their keyboards
Sorry.
because they can hide behind their keyboards.
Yeah, exactly. They can have their uncle and just talk, and they don't even care if your uncle is reading. But when you
Mm,
come to the terrestrial world, that the world of reality, they shy away from it. But what we want to do is that to bring sex. What part of what we are working around is to enable that discussion to be normalized. That it
mm,
should not be something that people should shy away from, but something that people can confront and talk. Is because sex. What I would like the way I see sex is is like when you're hungry, you go for it. If you're hungry and you want to eat, you go and have food to eat.
well,
If
I
you
think that's how they say it is for men, but it's different for women apparently. But let me just let me come away from that for a moment. You were talking about prevention, but before we go there, I know that this is something that in years past there's been a huge stigma. We discussed this earlier as well. There's been a
mm,
huge stigma, about having HIV, discussing HIV, and all of that. What is the stigma like today within these communities? Is it still such a big deal?
well, somehow the media has been very silent about HIV. So there's not been this kind of campaign about the advances in medication and advances in science and advances in research around HIV. So
Mm.
people are not aware of the kind of the landscape of HIV, terrain that we're in at the moment. So there is this long-standing stigma that still exists. And that is why we are doing our work to make sure that people are aware of what is happening. People are aware that there's advances in medication, there are advances in
So,
research.
are you saying that if there was more awareness of the advancement in medication, that there will be
Yeah.
less stigma attached to it?
Yeah, exactly. Because, for example, if you're on medication, you cannot transmit HIV. That's
Mhm.
something people have not come to realize that people who are on medication do not transmit HIV to somebody else. And
Okay,
so that is the normality that we want to bring, so that they can
that's
put people with living with HIV and those who are not in parity, so they can
okay.
understand that, listen, these people are now, because the life expectancy of an HIV positive person now, arguably, the life expectancy of an HIV positive is far better than somebody who is negative. You know why? Especially in the UK here, because they go for regular blood check on every 6 months at most.
So
Every
they're
yeah.
they're, they're
So they
constantly being
yeah,
looked at.
exactly. So not just the fact that they're living normally like
Mhm.
everybody else, going on life, but on a constant basis, every three some people every 3 months, some others every 6 months, they go for constant. They do their blood, they do their cholesterol, they do everything. They do check their blood pressure every
Okay.
6 months. They do all that. So before anything begins to emerge, they identify those illnesses and and deal with them.
So,
But
are you
people
able
were
to
sorry.
I was just going to say, are you able to tell us some of the new advancements now that is available now, so that for somebody who's watching, who's
Yeah.
maybe concerned about going to get checked, number one, or maybe who has HIV and they're fearful and concerned, they could feel more relaxed. What are those advances that is now available, please?
Yeah, we have what we call, first of all, we have what we call, which are some of the preventive measures. We have what we
Okay.
call pre-exposure prophylaxis. In
Hmm.
short form, it's called PrEP. Pre-exposure prophylaxis is a medication that you can take, that you take prior to sex. And
Yeah.
you take that and then you have sex. And that eliminates or that protects you against acquisition of HIV.
Right.
So it's a medication you take, and you can get that through the NHS, and it's going to be rolled out to everyone very soon. It was on trial just early this year, but now it's going to be rolled out so people can access this medication and take it prior to having sex, and
Oh,
then you can have sex, and then have sex with anybody. Even if the person is HIV positive, even if the person is, even if you have sex with the person knowing that the person is HIV positive, you won't contact HIV even when you do unprotected sex with that person.
application.
Yeah. So it's a medication you take prior to sex and after sex that will prevent you from acquiring HIV. And there is what we call PEP. PEP is post-exposure prophylaxis.
Right.
Post-exposure prophylaxis is the medication that you take in the event of you having exposed yourself to HIV positive person or the blood or whatever. You work in a clinic setting and the person tells you, oh, I'm HIV positive, or you have sex with somebody and the person tells you, oh, I'm HIV positive. and I'm not on medication. So you can take that medication within 72 hours after being exposed to HIV.
Really?
So
So
you have,
it's a
yeah,
little bit like the tablet that women take.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes, just like the tablet, yeah. So within 72 hours, you can take and it can eradicate HIV from your bloodstream. So these are advances. And there's what we call, U equals U, which is something I've discussed also in this program. It's called undetectable
Mm-hmm.
equals untransmittable. That means if the person achieves undetectability due to the medication, the person becomes non-transmittable of HIV. So these
Right.
are the three wonderful advancements that have been made in the HIV research that we need to, promote, and people need to understand this, that people living with HIV now are no more infectious as long as they're on medication. They are
Yeah, that's
living normal lives like everybody else, giving birth to negative kids and marrying negative people,
okay.
or having
That's
sex with
that
and having
sounds
sex.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
How does that impact on? Because I was surprised to note that there are countries that did not welcome you if you had HIV. If they became aware of your HIV status, you couldn't come to their country. How does this new drug that is going to, prevents and helps to eradicate out of your bloodstream, how does that affect, traveling to those countries now, for instance?
Well, because of the digital viral load that has been achieved due to
Mm,
medication intake, countries are beginning to relax the rules on people living with HIV. So usually, maybe they will just do a test and tells you, and they'll say, no, you can't come to our country because you're HIV positive. But if you're tested positive, they will just ask you, you're on medication. If you're on medication, you can then travel to our country and live in our country. There are some countries who still have those laws in place, but
mm,
many countries, even America, just 2009, that was when they lifted the ban on people traveling to our country who had HIV. So because of this medication, countries are beginning to see the need
mm.
to allow HIV positive people into their country. Even within court litigations, you have situations where in the past, if you're HIV positive, they will have to scrutinize you, do a lot of things before doing court processes. But now, if you're HIV positive and you're asked if you're on medication, because that is a deliberate preventive measure that you've taken to
Yeah.
prevent against transmission of HIV, and that stands in the court of law. It holds water in the court of law. So you can see how these advances in medication are informing policies and and legislations and everything
Okay.
across the globe.
Time is against us, but very quickly, some quick fire questions. Do you have to pay to get tested?
No, they're all free. You can go to free.testing.hiv and order for the
Okay.
test there. And you get it delivered to your house, and then you can then do the test yourself and then post it away, and then you get the result through test.
Okay. What about the fact that once upon a time, it was predominantly linked to the LGBT community? Is that still the case?
Well, LGBT in the UK here, the LGBT number is about 40 something percent,
Mhm.
40% of people living with the condition. But do you know that the Black community, the BMA community, that is just 3% of the population of United Kingdom, but has 34% of the population living with HIV in the UK? That is staggering. So you have
That
to
is,
understand that. That is why our work needs to be, promoted so that people can get tested. Because if the number keep going up, they can even supersede the LGBT Foundation, and we're just 3%.
wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. Um, you know, so what should we do? What would you say to those within the BAME community that are watching this, or that are going to come across this? What should they be doing, in order to prevent, to ensure that they don't make themselves victim, and to make sure that they stay safe? What should they be doing, Jeff?
Well, you have to get information. Go to BHA we have BHA underscore BHA dot equality on Instagram. You see lots of our information there. You can get yourself informed. We have free testing on our website that you can order at the bha.org.uk. You can order for free tests from September. You can also order for free condoms that you can order through our site, and
Okay.
then also you can order through freetesting.hiv. You can get free HIV kits there as well, self-sampling kits as well. And just try to use condom all the time, and just be, if it's
And just,
possible, abstain from sex if you know the person's at risk.
Jeff, time doesn't permit me, but thank you so much for enlightening us today, for taking the time out to, and enlighten us, as I've said. So they should, it's what I want to know though, before you do go, before I let you go, is BHA, do they exist here in London? I know they're based in Manchester. Do they have branches in London, across the country, or do they have a similar organization that people can access
Yeah,
within?
this is Manchester, but the free testing is a national program, so you can go, you can order for free testing online through
Mhm.
and on the line, and you can be delivered anywhere in the UK. But there are also other charities like the Terrorist Against Trust
Okay.
in London that you can access as well.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time, and I wish you all the best with all that
Thank
you're
you very
doing
much.
for BHA equality in health and social care, and especially on the HIV program. And to everybody that's listened to you, I pray that you will all get out there and do what you need to do. Jeff, thank you very much, and all the
Thank you
best.
very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Take care. Well, Jeff is gone, but we're not. Stay with us. We will be back with you in about another 10 minutes or so, when my second guest is going to tell us all about why he wants to become the governor of Edo State. Do you think he can become the governor of Edo State, or should he not bother with himself? There's so much going on in that state at the moment. What are your thoughts? In the meantime, make sure you click the subscribe button and the bell button, and you press like on the YouTube channel. Much appreciated. I'll see you in a moment. Don't go away.